The EOJ is doing their job, and we are here to support them and to facilitate them.
There is no power for this committee. It's an absolute waste of time, and I will not be going back.
The EOJ is doing their job, and we are here to support them and to facilitate them. Of course, once Portmore becomes a parish, there are 3 constituencies in Portmore. They will have to be renamed, obviously. So, for example, East Central St. Catherine will now become, let's say, Portmore East, for example. So that will happen. You have certain PDs. Again, those PDs will have to be renumbered. But again, it's just a technical work, and I believe the EOJ is competent to proceed with their work, and it is incumbent on everyone to support the work that they're doing. Yes.
You see any PD over the threshold?
In terms of what? In terms
the
of
legal
the
threshold? Yeah, numbers.
No, so again, as it relates to PDs, you have, so if you look at constituency, before you get to PDs, there are upper limits and lower limits for constituencies. All constituencies are within the upper limit and the lower limit. So as to whether or not the EOJ, because they were doing a national review as well. So it's not just limited to the parish of Portmore to be created, but also the different constituencies across Jamaica, looking at upper limit, lower limit. But all 3 constituencies within Portmore are within the upper limit and lower limit. Again, you do have some PDs in realigning how the PDs function. You might have a PD that has 900 registered voters. So again, the question is, will a recommendation be made that those PDs, can they be split in A, B, and C, or do you want to now change that PD and let it become 2 PDs as well? Because there is a view that no PD should have less than 100 persons, and some persons might say, well, a better manageable PD might be, let's say, 400 or 500. But again, we're going to be looking at the recommendations that will be made. But at this point, it's looking at the certain technical aspects, but we are moving ahead. It is the bill has been passed in the lower house and upper house. The EOJ is doing their job, and I am pledging my full support to the work that's been done by the EOJ.
How much meeting like this, planned, if you know?
No, well, so there will be further meetings. There will also be site visits, for example. So when we look at, in terms of how the new boards of Portmore, how the boundaries, how those will align. So at some point we will go into what we call a field visit with the team from the EOJ, the technical team, just to look at where the new boundaries will be. But so there will be more meetings. This is the second meeting. The first meeting was over a month ago at the conference center, downtown Kingston. You have this meeting now. There will be a meeting tomorrow. That meeting is for St. Catherine Parish members. So we expect that we'll have a series of meetings. There's a deadline that the EOJ is operating with as it relates to, when the report goes back to Parliament, when Parliament liaises with the court and so forth. But it's full speed ahead.
Is it 2 years, the deadline?
I think it's 27, 28. We're looking at about maybe a year and a half, I would say, for full completion. But again, the EOJ, they will be in a better position to indicate that, again, based on the technicalities. But there's so much happening in Jamaica right now, with Portmore becoming the 15th parish. Again, you probably just saw a report recently that said that Jamaica is the most peaceful country in the region. It is within the top 3 most peaceful countries in the region of the Caribbean and Latin America. And as a member of Portmore, I want to highlight the community of Gregory Park. I want to thank the police officers for the work that they have been doing, and thank the government, the support of the Prime Minister and the Ministry of National Security. When we put that police post inside of Gregory Park, and it's something we need to highlight more. When we're recording peace in a country like Jamaica, when you think about where we're coming from, I believe that so much more needs to be done. Every Jamaican child should be singing on their lips that I live in the most peaceful country in the region. So in Gregory Park, Councillor Joy Brown is inside, with tremendous support from her. Now ACP Christopher Phillips, when he was in Portmore, tremendous support from him as well, and the entire police team. So Gregory Park, we have not recorded a single murder in almost 2 years. It's a big deal, and just when you look at the numbers across the country, by almost 50% reduction, we're heading towards the 500 mark for this year. Again, I believe it is so positive. It is so positive that this sort of culture of peace that has been developed in Jamaica, again, every boy, every girl should be singing that. And we're speaking about Portmore becoming a parish. Again, Gregory Park is one of the safest places in the world right now. Forget the stigma of 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 40 years ago. Historic. 2 years, not one single murder recorded inside of Gregory Park. And again, I mean, I want to thank the officers, thank the political director for the support. You know, I mean, we would not have had that police post inside of Gregory Park without the support of the Prime Minister and the Minister of National Security, and of course Christopher Phillips and his team, ACP Phillips and his team, and of course our community members in Gregory Park, our Councillor Joy Brown, you know, I mean, our youth leaders, our senior members, the young men in the community who are now focused on job, employment, you know, I mean, earning and so forth. So again, it has been an all of government, all of community approach in making Gregory Park one of the safest communities in Portmore. So as we look to becoming a parish, I want you all to note that as well. Gregory Park, 2 years in, and we're so happy and excited about that.
We just discussed some of the boundary changes that will take place in the naming of the constitution of the naming of the new parish. However, these changes will not come into effect until the next general election.
Okay. And what are there any sticking point that you can discuss? You know, what you know stuck on?
Well, there are some legal issues which the EOJ is not in a position to answer, and they'll take note of them and they'll take it to the legal body and to come back to the next meeting with some recommendation.
Satisfied with the meeting points?
Yes, but they need more community participation. This one just have the political representatives here from the 3 constituencies. But in terms of the community's involvement, we haven't gotten to that stage yet.
So in terms of the divisions, are the threshold being met at present? Are there plans to, are you discussing the plans to cut these divisions?
Yes, there are about 3 of them that were mentioned, with one of PD1 in East Central has over 1,300 electors in it. That definitely has to cut. There is also one in St. Catherine Southern, which have a similar amount of electors in it. Those definitely has to be cut. Or cut in 2.
So that would mean more divisions.
More PDs.
More PDs.
Yeah,
okay.
more PDs. And there's one in particular in Southeast, PD1, which has literally no electors in it, but it borders Sandy Gully and comes back and borders into Waterford. No, that PD will not have an elector in it because it's as a swamp. It's uninhabitable. So nobody would live there. But that's PD1 in Southeast.
And then when you say Sandy Gully, that's
Riverton City, going all the way over to Riverton City.
Because the boundary line would have extended there.
Yes.
The parish
yes,
boundary.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's one of the proposed boundary change.
Okay, sir. So you participated in this boundary alignment meeting. So tell us some of the sticking points that came out of the meeting, and whether or not you're satisfied with the direction that the discussions are taking.
Well, my participation is going to be limited for the simple reason this is a kangaroo committee. As much as you'd hear about a kangaroo court, they have already decided that they're going to form a Portmore parish, and it is based on gerrymandering. Last time I checked, voters chose who their elected representatives were. I never see anywhere where elected representatives choose who their voters are. And this is what has happened. So I'm not going to co-sign to anything because they can say it was passed by both houses of parliament. I know they're going to say that they have consultations with the members of parliament and the elected officials in Portmore. That's nonsense. They decided that they're going to draw some lines in the sand as if there are some colonial masters. They have turned neighbors into people who live in different parishes with very little consideration for how their goals of trying to garrisonize East Central St. Catherine is going to affect people who are living in the space. No proper consultation for the people, none whatsoever with the elected officials, and I expect us now to come on board and bicker about which which meandering line we can change or suggest to be changed. There is no power for this committee. It's an absolute waste of time, and I will not be going back.
Robert Miller, Member of Parliament, caretaker for South East St. Catherine.
Yes, Mr. Miller, meeting just completed a while ago. Tell us,
All right, so it's every time that we come to these meetings, you know, to move forward, especially for Portmore in particular, we reach on to some stumbling blocks and some challenges, some delay tactics that are being explored. But the work has to continue, and I'm thankful for this meeting that the EOJ is meeting with us to determine the future of Portmore. As you can recall, it was passed in the lower house and then the upper house, and then a document was sent from the Jamaican Parliament for us to decide on the boundary areas to ensure that Portmore gets its rightful share to become a parish of Jamaica, the 15th parish of Jamaica. So this meeting was just to give us a synopsis as to the total amount of each constituency, which constituency will be more affected by this new boundary alignment, and this will come in effect at the next general election, which is constitutionally due in 2030. But the work has to continue now because the court was specific in its deliberations, in its mandate, that they have to get certain information by a certain time. So I'm not privy to that document. I was just told by them. So we're starting the process of informing people as to where the mindset is, as to where the parish cuts will be. As it is right now, Southeast St. Catherine is properly placed in Portmore, the parish of Portmore, when it becomes a parish. And the constituencies that will really be affected will be South St. Catherine and also East Central St. Catherine. However, it's very prudent that we look at the entire landscape of Portmore to see how best we can realign the areas, because South St. Catherine, as it is right now, it has on its registry over 42,000 electorate, and in Southeast St. Catherine we have over 41,000, and in East Central we have around 28,000, and some of the PDs in East Central will be sent to St. Catherine where it belongs. So we're looking at how we're going to realign the entire Portmore to ensure that the citizens of Portmore get good representation and the representation that they deserve. So it was just an information as to the way forward and what's the thinking of EOJ, consultation, what would be our thinking as well, what would be our preference in terms of the boundaries of Portmore, and there should be a meeting in the near future that we will walk and really visualize as to the parish cut for Portmore.
Are there any plans, before this, to get the citizens?
Yes, there's a plan. There's going to be an education because the citizens have to know. You know, if a PD is going to move from PD1, for example, and it's going to be PD3 now. As a matter of fact, all the constituencies in Portmore has to change. There has to be a name change, right? There has to be Portmore something, right? And the PDs will be realigned. So all those changes, the citizens will be notified. The citizens will give their input as well as to how they envision their particular area. And it's a collaborative effort, moving forward to see how best we can properly cater to the electorate that we represent.